Method overriding. In this lesson, basically, I will show you how to use two methods or more with the same name, but with different arguments and functionality. Let's see what Wikipedia has to say about the subject. Method overriding, also called function overriding, is a programming concept that allows programmers to define two or more functions with the same name and the same scope. Each function has a unique signature or header which derived from function or procedure name, number of arguments, arguments types, arguments order, arguments name, and return type. So what I will show you is how to use functions with the same name but with different number of arguments and argument type. That's what we'll do in this lesson. So we have an empty main method, and I also created a class named calc, and we will create a public method and we'll call it plus. What plus will do is, well, a few things. The first plus method with no arguments will just output plus is a method to calculate stuff. And now we will copy the method declaration and we will paste it. And as you can see, we have an error because duplicate method plus in type calc. Basically, the compiler doesn't like it that we use two methods with the same name. So if I add an int x and an int y, now it's not the same. It has two arguments it gets, so no error, no problem. So let's do an int z, and int z will be x plus y. We already did that, and let's output the result x plus empty string with the character plus y plus equal symbols plus z. So this will basically output the calculation. And now let's do another one, but with, instead of ints, we'll use floats. No, doubles. With a float you need to add f at the end of everything. Basically the same as this is also legal for the Java compiler in the Java language syntax. So basically we have three methods with different arguments, and they do different things. And let me show you another cool thing. X, y, int, let's say b. So let's see if it can return an int. Yeah, it can return an int. So basically here we also return the result of z in this plus. And what I want to do here is take this plus with two arguments, pass it the x, y, and the result that will be returned, I want to add the b to it. So basically it will send these two arguments to the plus that gets two ints, and it will go through here and return the result here, and then I will just add, it will return an int. As you can see, the return is an int. and then I do plus b, which is this one. Oh, and it will also output this. No problem. Let's copy this. I want to add the b. To the x plus y plus b equals z. This z is in a different scope than this, if you remember scopes. This z is only available in this plus method, and this z is only available in this plus method and nowhere else. The same for the x and y. The arguments that are only available in this method, and these are only available in this method execute clause, which is the curly brackets. Here I would recommend adding a lot of comments like and the name of the method and also its argument, so you'll know which one it's referring to. You can also add yourself calc 2 numbers, calc 2 nums, if you like writing things short like me. That way you'll know if it's a very long method and it ends, you'll know what it ends. You can do this for the rest of the methods. We won't do this to save time. I just want to show you how to do it. So what we have here is a plus method, if we want to recap everything, that just outputs a string basically. It says plus is a method to calculate stuff. And then we have another method called plus, but this time it returns an int. It gets 2 arguments, x and y. It does things with them, and it returns the calculation, which is z, returns z. And here we have another plus method, but this time it gets 3 arguments. But instead of writing all of this again, we just use the previous implementation of plus and pass to it these 2 arguments, and we add b to them, to the result. And then we just output the result. Notice that we don't return anything. We return voice and void, not voice. And lastly, we have another plus method, but this time it gets doubles. And it basically does the same. It calculates the doubles the same way that it calculates the ints and outputs them exactly the same. SO gets any kind of type, so it's no problem. Just copy pasting this from here to here, vice versa. It will output anything as long as it's available to output. As you remember, it will output this x, which is in the scope of plus this x, not this x, and not this x. I hope you're understanding how scopes work, and you really get it. So if not, watch the video about scopes again, or use the Q&A. So let's use it and see what everything does. Calc C equals new calc. Let's use the first plus, s dot plus. This will output calc is a method plus is a method to calculate stuff. Let's copy this again, and let's give it 1 and 1. This will do a 1 plus 1 operation because the first plus, that's what it does. Gets 2 numbers, calculates them, outputs the result, and it also returns it, the result, so we can use it in the second plus. Let's do another one. 1 plus 1, and let's add 2, another argument. This will do 1 plus 1 plus 2, which is 4, which is what the second plus method does. As you can see, it uses the first plus to calculate the first 2 arguments instead of rewriting basically this line. It could have been even 20 lines of code or 100 lines of code, but instead we use the same implementation, 20 or 100 codes with a single line. In our case, it's just one line of code, basically 2, because it outputs 1 plus 1, the calculation it does inside plus, and then it returns the result, and then it outputs the whole calculation. And we also had a plus for doubles. So let's copy this, and we'll calculate 1.5 plus 1.5 should be 3. 1 plus 5 plus 1 plus 5 is 3.0. So that's basically overriding methods. It's using the same method name, but with different arguments and different executions. I also showed you how to use a different method inside a method when both of the methods have the same name, but they have different arguments. And yeah, that's kind of it. There's not much to it. Let's see. No, I don't see anything I missed. I covered everything I wanted to cover in this lesson using method and overriding it using the number of arguments. Let's see in the wiki. Number of arguments and argument type. Here we also overloaded the argument type. All the other plus methods return void, and only the second plus that gets 2 int arguments has a return type of int. As I advise not to use things with the same name, not methods, not class names, not variables. In our case it's methods with the same name. It can get confusing, but sometimes it is necessary, but use it carefully and always document your code. I don't care, even open a notepad and write a plus with 2 arguments does this and that. Document it so you'll have it documented in case you will see it after a few months and don't remember what it does. But yeah, generally don't use things with the same name. This case is an exception to this rule, but again, use it carefully. You can get pretty nasty bugs if you use things with the same name. It will be very hard to find those bugs. You won't get any errors, just strange behavior. But this is part of the basics of programming, so I must cover it. And it's a very useful tool, as you've seen here. I reused all of this code. And that's it for this lesson.